Welcome back to another Show the Men Who Cry podcast. Thank you guys again for listening. Very interesting weekend that we just came about in the NBA. Some of the craziest things that took place that I can remember all happened on a weekend, and somehow the board ended up being pretty chalk. We really only had two actual seeding upsets, three if you counted the betting odds going in for Lakers Rockets. But I just want to talk about the last game that just took place, Cavs Raptors. You guys will be hearing this on Tuesday, so we will be entering into round two already. But I mean, what a weird series. What a bad series in a lot of different ways. Brandon Ingram didn't play in the last couple of games due to his injury. Um, I still do not know how that Raptors team won 3 games. I don't know whether or not to credit the Raptors or disparage the Cavs in the sense that the Raptors couldn't score. Like, they had multiple guys injured, quickly didn't play the whole series. You had, like I said, BI got hurt during the series. And I mean, their shooting was awful, like truly awful. Jared Allen came up big for them in the third quarter, beating the Cavs, and really was a difference in the game. And now the Cavs are moving on to face a Pistons teams that also just got out of its most weird series that I can imagine as well. And these playoffs have just been seeing things that I feel like haven't seen in a long time. Just to recap, just the overall series that we had two teams come back from a 3-1 deficit in the Pistons and the the Sixers rather. We had, in one of those 3-1 series, a team have a 24-point lead and then didn't score for essentially the entire third and fourth quarters. You had a team that was missing its two starting guards and its backup guard, in which that backup guard had 43 points with an MVP who averaged a triple-double in the regular season, losing 6 games. You had a Rockets team that went down 3-0. Kevin Durant may or may not have ran away from his team and then came back, lost the series to LeBron James at 41 years old. The Thunder basically dominated the Suns, and no one talked about it after that. Wemby had a great game 1, got hurt in game 2, and then the Spurs didn't lose another game in that series. And the Knicks beat a team by, 10,000 points. That all happened just in round 1. For a guy who said that this was going to be a very boring round 1. I'm so excited for the second round to begin. As you guys are listening to this, Knicks Sixers would have taken place along with the Timberwolves taking on the Spurs. And I'm going to dive into the Sixers-Knicks series in a little bit, but I just want to talk about the fact that the Sixers were able to come back and beat a level of demonhood that I don't think that was apparent for a while. Just this was getting Harlem Globetrotter-esque Washington Generals into what was happening between Celtics and the Sixers as far as their history of teams. The Sixers just could never beat Philadelphia. The Sixers could never just beat the Celtics in a big spot ever. The last time these two teams played in the Game 7, the Sixers blew Game 6 at home, having a 3-2 lead, and then got destroyed in Game 7 in Boston. And going into that game, I really thought Boston was going to win that game just because I have seen this same group of Sixers fold time and time and time again, and they didn't fold. Joel Embiid came back and completely changed the way the series was being run. Tyrese Maxey was the best player in the series. You could argue Tyrese Maxey was the best player in the Eastern Conference playoffs this year. And that's saying something with how well Cade played in his 7-game series, is how well his Cat played in his 7-game series. I think Tyrese Maxey was the best guy going. And for the Celtics, and just, it's one thing to have a team be put together, and this group of guys have won a championship, right? We have seen Derek White, Joe Mazzulla, Jason Tatum, Jalen Brown, this core of guys win a championship. We've seen this core of guys win the conference multiple times. We've seen this core of guys get to the Eastern Conference Finals. The fact that they lean so heavy into playing this style of basketball, I think truly just baffles fans. I do not understand for the life of me why they were the favorites coming out of the East. Made no sense to me. Didn't get it at all. A team that lost a lot of starters from last year, brought in a bunch of guys who had never really played in, let alone NBA games, but playoff games, was somehow going to then win 4 playoff rounds and essentially win the championship, if not even do that, get to the NBA Finals. That made no sense to me. And I think that the overhyping of this team came into play, because what's the thing that I've always said on this pod, and I will continue to say, the regular season in the NBA means some things, but it does not mean everything. And having 3/5 of the guy that you have to play not have any playoff experience matters. And should Boston have won this series? Of course they should have won this series. They're up 3-1. Okay, with home court advantage, with 2 games at home. And also, this is a team that goes into Philadelphia and wins all the time. They win all the time in Philadelphia. In the regular season, the playoffs, they beat Philadelphia, especially in Philly, all the time. And once Philly won that game 6, you knew they had the confidence going into game 7, even though it was in Boston. And I think something that we talked about on this podcast before was just about, I know the trick bag of every single podcaster, once Boston loses, are they going to trade Jalen Brown and Jason Tatum, or are they going to break these guys up? I fundamentally do not think that these guys should be broken up, right? I think you have 2 guys, one who seem to like to play with each other, won a championship together. And I don't necessarily think it's also the easiest thing to trade someone like Jalen Brown with his type of contract. However, they need to have a come to Jesus moment, because this whole we're just going to shoot a bunch of threes and try to outmath people is not working. It's not. And it's weird to say for a team that won a championship doing it this way, though the road for them to win a championship, a bunch of people were hurt. And them having to always try and just shoot threes, ignore layups, constantly go matchup hunting is just not the thing. And I do not know if Mazzulla is the kind of guy where you have to tell him to change a style of play for him to want to be into that. I think this is how he coaches. I do not think that there was anything, I think he had a tremendous job coaching. I do not think he is going to get fired. I would not advocate for him to be fired. But him, Brad Stevens, and the rest of the brass there need to seriously consider, do we want to keep playing like this? Derek White is a guy who had a miserable season shooting from 3. While I still think he's a good player, if he is going to shoot 32% or worse from 3-point line, he is not someone that should be doing that and having multiple playoff games in his future with the Celtics. He has $100 million, a little less under $100 million left. The Celtics did some moves at in the trade deadline rather than getting under the tax. Off-season talk for them will be fascinating. But this is just a team that their actual style of play is just not going to keep working. This is just not something that's going to be sustainable if you want to keep advancing far in the playoffs. And you still have 2 of the 12 best players in the league going forward. But one of those players, I'm going to be honest with you, he's got to stop. He's got to stop. If you guys haven't seen this, by the time you listen to this, Jalen Brown went on streaming right after they lost to the Sixers. Took a lot of shots at Joel Embiid, calling him a flopper, which isn't anything super crazy. People who have watched the NBA or watched all this for a while definitely see that Joel Embiid flops a lot. But you're just coming across like it's sour grapes, man. Like the team lost. And you specifically were trying to guard the guy who you say keeps flopping, and you weren't able to do it. And the one thing that I questioned when Tatum was coming back was, is Jalen Brown going to be comfortable with the role that he's going to have to play? And I didn't necessarily mean it for this season, but I meant it going forward. Because as Jalen Brown said, this, not the year that they made the NBA Finals, not the year that they won the championship where he was Finals MVP, not the year that they were the number one seed in the conference. This season was his favorite season of playing basketball. There are a lot of ways where teams get broken up. There are a lot of ways that things break up teams. Again, I do not think management should break up the Celtics or break up rather the Jays. But I'm curious if Jalen Brown is going to go back to being the number 2 option that he was pegged to be for most of his time in Boston, and how comfortable that's going to be with Jason Tatum. Things don't last. These guys have played together for almost a decade at this point. I personally would be shocked if these guys play together for the rest of their careers, just because it's just the nature of the beast. You know, like they have been able to do it so where both guys have been paid their respective amounts, and they've never really had like the third guy clogging up financially the space. Kind of what happened with Oklahoma City Thunder when they had KD, Russ, and Harden. So Jalen Brown's got a lot of time to stream now and post and I guess commentate if he wants to. And we will see how their offseason will play out, because this to me does not seem like a good sign where a guy finally got some of that sugar and now he wants more of it, and it doesn't seem like he's going to be willing to stop at it. Talk a little bit about Magic's Pistons, a series where, God, did that set basketball back. Everyone who's so pining for 90s ball, I hope that you enjoyed all this, because the amount of bricks that both teams laid up from game 1 to game 7, we could have completely redesigned the pyramids in Egypt. Holy shit. The Pistons were able to thug their way out of this. Shout out to Tobias Harris. I don't know how all of a sudden, maybe it's just like me. I'm in multiple group chats where then I all of a sudden became a Tobias Harris like staunch defender. I'm not. I just, a lot of times, anytime things happen on social media or just with fan bases, the guy is probably not as bad as the fans are saying that he is. And Tobias is a good basketball player. And he and Cade Cunningham dragged these boys into the second round. Obviously, the injury to Franz Wagner completely changed everything for the Orlando Magic. They didn't necessarily have a guy who was able to not only guard Cade, but also help give Paolo Banchero some much needed help on the offensive end. Also, credit to Paolo. He definitely has gotten a lot of crap, I would say, the last couple months, just because of how the Magic were and how he was. But he was great in this series. I mean, great. In a losing effort, I give him a lot of credit for coming through and doing what he had to do. The team just, I mean, I don't really know what the Magic did well outside of rebound and push people around. Like that, the fact that this series went 7 games should not surprise people, because we are essentially looking at 2 of the same teams. And Jamal Mosley, I think, is going to go down as the first coach to lose his job after he actually saved his job. I can't describe, I think, what would be worse for Magic fans. The fact that you basically were like, all right, this season's over, it's done. Look, get this guy fired. We'll get a new coach in here. Shout out to Tom Thibodeau. He might be making his way down to Disneyland. Go up 3-1 on the 1 seed and look like you are headed to not just the second round, but whether it was Cleveland or Toronto who won, like you had a real good chance to get to the conference finals. for the first time, I believe, since the 2012 season with Dwight Howard. To go from that to losing 3 straight, having game 6 where you do not score at all. Jalen Suggs, I believe I saw, someone double check me this on if I saw this. Did Jalen Suggs miss 32 of his last 37 shots? Missed 32 shots. And it looked bad. And I think that game 6 will obviously come back to haunt a lot of Magic fans because that's the game that there's always that game. And seeing how much they basically toyed with their fans, basically gave them a level of blue balls that I would not want to have experienced, is the fireable thing. So Mosley's out in a way where he saved his job, but you have to let him go after the series that just transpired. And seeing how much money that this Orlando Magic team invested in the roster, the trades that they made, they're going to need a new coach. I already said Tom Thibodeau seems like he's going to be the guy to get you down there, because one thing that Tom Thibodeau does is get you regular season wins, and they might not even be into this position if they just win more games during the regular season. And for the Pistons, they get to take on the Cavs. We'll touch on that series a little bit later in the week, rather. But as of right now, the way that I'm picking it, that series is 2 teams that I don't necessarily like either of their chances as far as their style of play. On the one hand, I think the Pistons look at it as, we are going to beat the hell out of Evan Mobley and Jared Allen, 2 guys who have questions about their toughness overall. And you have a Detroit team that looks like it struggles to hit 100 points in 2026. And if Cleveland gets their offense going, which they had in this previous game against Toronto, the Pistons look like they just can't keep up. This looks like another 7-game series in a way of styles make fights. These are 2 totally different styles of teams, 2 different types of ways they want to play, 2 different talents on the court. We will make more of a prediction when we get closer to the start of that series, aka we will make that prediction on Friday's show. Trust me, we will record before the games are played, so it will still be fresh eyes. But yeah, that series looks like it's going 7 all the way. Circling back around to the Sixers-Knicks series that we will have up. Again, by the time we were playing this, game 1 would have already taken place. 2 teams who just recently played in the playoff series 2 years ago, a series that went 6 games. I would say a breakout series for Jalen Brunson. That was probably the series that I think most people saw him become the superstar that he is right now. In his last 4 games in that series, Jalen Brunson averaged just under 40 points per game in that series, including having a 47-11 game in Philadelphia, a career high in the playoffs, and also a Knicks record in the playoffs. Joel Embiid had a 50-point game in that series. I think we all kind of forget because he had Bell's palsy, then he had the knee thing, and then he was kicking people in the nuts and injuring players, including Mr. Robinson. I think this series is going 7 as well. The key for this series to me is going to be, how do the Knicks guard Tyrese Maxey, who again looked like the best player in the Eastern Conference during this playoff run? Are they able to slow him down in every single way? In the series beforehand, they were not able to do that at all. I would say the personnel is different than what they had in 2023. But it doesn't necessarily seem that they have a good job of slowing him down. Frankly, no one really in the NBA looks like they have a good chance of slowing this guy down. And for the Sixers, how do they keep New York off the glass? New York was one of the best offensive rebounding and defensive rebounding teams, not only during the regular season, but in the playoffs. And Philadelphia has been a bottom 5 rebounding team in the NBA for a while now. Last time these two played, The series was only defined by 1 point. The Knicks scored one more point than the Sixers, even though it was a 6-game series. And we will see who will come out on top for that series going between those two. That has started already. And we will be talking about game 2 that will be taking place on Wednesday, the next time that we are trying to record. Over on the West side, I feel like we stopped talking about Oklahoma City because they just dominated everyone, and I think they're going to dominate again. No word on whether or not Luka Doncic is going to play. It doesn't seem like he's going to play. Austin Reeves is going to come back. I think the Lakers would be great if they win one game. Oklahoma City just looks like far and away the best team in the league right now. We are not talked about them at all because they have just been dominating so much, and there's nothing really to talk about there. And for the Spurs Timberwolves, the thing I said before was I need to see how many games Ant's going to play. It looks like he's going to try and play in game 3. I mean, he has a knee injury, and for a guy who relies on his athleticism a lot, it seems like that's going to be a tough pill for him to be able to go down. However, people keep counting out this Minnesota team, and it comes down to the thing that we talk about a lot. Talent is great, but once you get to this part of the playoffs, everyone's talented. Everyone has great players. It is about your ability to execute, your ability to match up, and your ability to commit to whatever game plan that you had. And the Timberwolves team has made the Western Conference Finals multiple times. I think the Spurs team is just going to be a little bit too much. I have the Spurs winning in 6 games. I think the injuries are just going to come back and bite them. I also just do not think that the Minnesota does enough to get Wemby out of the paint. And for a team that's going to be missing at least Ant and obviously the rest of those guys for 2 games, I think scoring is going to be such a problem for Minnesota without those guys, and factoring the fact that Wemby is going to be in the paint. They do not really have a stretch big. They do have it in Naz Reid. The issue when Naz Reid plays is that they get killed on the glass. How much does Finch lead into the lineup where they have Randall or I guess Naz, depending on how you look at it, at guard, at the 3 position, at the forward position? It's going to be a tough series to kind of dole out, but I will have the Spurs winning in 6 games going with that. Also, I might as well just call the 2 series beforehand. I have Knicks in 7, and I have the Cavs in 7 over the Pistons. But all right, that's all the time that we have for you guys today. Thank you guys again for listening. It would mean so much to me if you please get this podcast a 5-star rating, a like, a review. That would be great for us. If you're unable to do these things, I have to assume that you bet the money line when the Hawks were down by 47 points to the New York Knicks. This is the Men Who Cry podcast. Thank you guys again for listening. Peace.